Welcome to South Coast Working, the voice of working people and those who continue to build the South Coast each and every day. From the docks to the mills to the classrooms to the roadways, working people add a voice and life to southeastern Massachusetts. Brought to you by the UMass Dartmouth Arnold M. Dubin Labor Education Center.
Welcome to South Coast Working. I'm Kim Wilson, Director of the Arnold M. Dubin Labor Education Center.
And I'm Jim Snow, consultant to the Labor Education Center.
We're talking with Lisa Lemieux today. Ms. Lemieux is the president of the Greater Southeastern Massachusetts Labor Council, AFL-CIO. The Labor Council consists of 40 affiliated unions, which represent 40,000 affiliated members across southeastern Massachusetts and the Cape and the Islands. She is part of an all-female team that includes Chrissy Lynch, president of the Massachusetts AFL-CIO, who was featured in a previous episode of South Coast Working, and Liz Schuler, president of the national AFL-CIO. The Labor Education Center will be proudly presenting the Dubin Award to Liz Schuler on our 50th anniversary.
Well, welcome to South Coast Working, President Lemieux.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What's your background? Have you always lived in southeastern Massachusetts?
No, I was actually born in South Texas near the border in Brownsville, Texas, then moved north of Dallas to what was a small town back then called Frisco. And I was 9 years old when I moved there, and I graduated from high school there when I was 17 years old and moved to Massachusetts 36 years ago now. It was actually on a Saturday night when I moved to Plymouth, Massachusetts, and that's where I actually met my first husband, who was a member of Utility Workers Local 369.
What makes this place special as a place to live and work?
So I fell in love when I moved here. I love living near the water. You know, I came here to spend the summer with a friend. I fell in love with the people in the area and certainly fell in love with the labor movement, and I just never went back. So I miss my family dearly, but this has become home for me.
Well, talk about your family. I see on social media your grandkids are everywhere. Isn't it great to be a grandparent?
It is. It's the best. I have 4 kids. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. And with them comes 6 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild, and they are what drives me to do all that I do. It's been a driving force to do everything I can to improve, life in the community that we live in, right? I started wanting to make sure that they had good schools and good jobs, and that's always been my driving force, is making sure that they could grow up in a good place. And so super proud of all of my kids and all of my grandkids.
How long have you been president of the Labor Council? What led you to the position?
I am proudly ending my 2nd term as president of the Greater Southeastern Mass Labor Council, so 8 years.
People may not understand that your presidency is not a full-time job. So what keeps you busy during the day or when you're not doing council business?
Yeah, it's a lot. So I am I'm working as an organizer for the Mass Teachers Association, and this was after 17 years of being an organizer with 1199 SEIU, where I had the honor of representing healthcare workers for 17 years. And then when I went to work with the Mass Teachers Association, I started out as an organizer representing educators in the schools. And now I've landed where I'm now representing retirees, which has been an absolutely an amazing and just exciting job. Like, you don't have to explain it to retirees. They just seem to get it, right? And, being able to accomplish something like overcoming the WEP GPO challenge that we had is super exciting. And now, this year we're moving on to things like, the COLA, is going to be a battle. When I meet retirees who are living in poverty, who, retirees who worked for, 40 plus years and learning that they can't live on their retirement. That's shameful. So, we have a lot of work to do, even in a place like Massachusetts, where I'm proud to say we have high, union rates, where we have really great union contracts, but the cost of living has gone up faster than their paychecks, and certainly their retirement has. I still, as a union organizer, spend a lot of my time working 6 and 7 days a week, helping to improve the lives and working conditions for workers, because that's what's needed. And so, from just answering questions to helping folks interpret their union contracts to the process for them to get ready to retire, to helping people connect with their retirement benefits. And then there's, the volunteer side of my work, right? Everything that I do at the Labor Council is completely voluntary. I'm an elected president, but I don't get paid for what I do. So making sure that the Labor Council and all our members, all our affiliates have what they need, that we're meeting all our requirements to our constitutional requirements is completely voluntary. So, that takes a lot of time. And then, I'm also a member or, a co-chair to the Democratic New Bedford Democratic City Committee and a state committee member, which I think goes hand in hand with the work that we do for our members in the labor movement, also takes a lot of my time as well. So,
Oh, thank you. Is there anything that surprised you when you became president?
I guess I never imagined the amount of time that I would spend, doing this. I always say to people, there isn't enough hours in my day and enough days in my week, but I would say that it has always been the biggest honor of my life to be able to get paid to do something that I absolutely love to do. But I guess on the that's one of the pros, and the cons is I'm always surprised at the amount of racism and sexism that still exists in our world. And that has always been hard for me to deal with.
Well, that's the follow-up to that is what's the toughest part of it? And you've kind of explained that, but you've got dozens of affiliates. You have tens of thousands of members in the Labor Council. So all of them have a problem or a dispute at a certain point in their existence, and it's up to you, isn't it?
Yes.
What does the significance of President Schuler's visit upcoming in October mean to you and to the labor movement here?
It's huge. It means so much. And, I think that many people have heard me say this over and over again, and I'll say it again and again, is that I believe deep in my heart that the issues for workers in southeastern Massachusetts are very different than the issues for workers of the workers in Boston or the workers in Washington, D.C. And I will take any and every opportunity that I can to highlight that. We need the leaders of this world, the leaders of this country, the leaders, any leader, whether it's our, whether it's our mayor, whether it's our governor, whether it's, elected, senators, state reps, whoever it is, people need to understand that the issues that the workers have here in southeastern Massachusetts, whether it's the Cape and Islands, that the issues that our workers have are very different. And we need people to understand that. And we need every bit of help that we can to help the members of this community, whether they're unionized or not unionized. We're going to constantly do everything that we can to raise those issues so that we can help improve them for every member of our community. So having Liz here to show her those issues, and so that we can have her help her raise awareness of those issues and the help that we need to make those improvements happen, we appreciate her willingness to come down here and be part of that and meet us, to meet our members, and to see the beautiful place that we live in, and that we just want to help maintain it and grow it and make life better for all the people in our community.
What do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment so far?
I think from day one, as the president of this Labor Council, I took seriously my responsibility to grow this labor council. I watched the work that my predecessor did before me, and I knew that it was important that we grow the labor council in order to make sure that we had a labor movement that could survive and could keep this labor council alive and help keep the labor movement alive. And so I've worked really hard to not only replace our delegates and our affiliates, but to grow it so that we could stay strong. And I am proud, that we've been able to add some affiliates and also replace some of our retiring and outgoing delegates and affiliates.
Well, you've got a couple of terms under your belt. What would you think about changes that could be made in labor councils and how they operate within the AFL-CIO?
Well, I mean, change is good. It's always been a dream of mine to have paid staff. I mean, we function solely on volunteers. And I think that, both Liz Schuler and Chrissy have done an amazing job. I am super proud of the work that they've done. Watching Chrissy grow into her presidency has been just amazing. She's doing an amazing job here in Massachusetts. But it has always been a goal of mine that we've been, be able to add some paid staff. As unions, we, certainly for me, I feel like I've always learned under fire, right? We don't, we are some of the hardest employers, as unions. And so, I would love to at some point have paid staff at our labor council and paid staff with benefits. So, we have a couple of part-time organizers who make just a little bit of money, but be able to say that we at some point would be able to hire some, staff who make good living wages with benefits would be great.
Southeastern Massachusetts has seen some political surprises recently, like the presidential election results. What do you make of it?
It's beyond disappointing. I think the hardest thing for me is the people who are just not voting. And, for that, I would just say shame on those people who are not voting. There's no excuse for that. People just need to take the time. We have a lot of people who spend a lot of time providing education, on these issues. We're not here to tell people who to vote for. We try to provide education, on who the candidates are, what the impacts of how you vote will be, and hope that people will take the time to, learn from that and then make their own decisions. But the amount of people who are eligible to vote and can vote and choose not to vote or don't take the time to vote is very disheartening. And we're feeling the impact of that. And so, the amount of union members who are, not voting, that there's just no need for that. We need people to vote. And I think that if people did take the time to vote, the results would speak for themselves. And so, for me, I'm going to focus on what I can do, and that's to continue to organize and educate and hope that people will do the right thing.
So what would you have to say to union members at this point in your professional life, and where are we heading?
I say, if, get involved in your local union, get involved in your local labor council, because when, we come together and we work together, we can make a difference. I've seen it with my own eyes. When I worked at AT&T in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, and NAFTA came about and we were losing our jobs, we did informational pickets, we educated our community, and when we went out to picket and I saw, other members of our community and other members of the labor movement out there picketing for us, that changed my life. I saw the difference that we could make, and, I decided right there in that moment that that was something that I wanted to be part of. And it changed my life. And so I know, and I always tell people that story because I saw the difference it made in my life. And so I encourage people to get involved in their local union and in their labor council because, if it can make a difference in my life, it can make a difference in yours. And I see what it's done for my own children. My own son is a member of, Plumbers Local 51, just bought his own house in the city of New Bedford. And he did all the work. He, went to school, joined the Plumbers Union, spent 10 years in their apprenticeship program, now has multiple licenses and is making a living wage. Right. And so I am super proud of him. He had to work hard. He had to put the time in, but now he's doing, so well in his own life. And I know that, every person, if you just put the time in and put the effort in, it can happen for you too.
What about the jobs climate here in southeastern Massachusetts? What's happening, plus and minus, that is either helping workers or hurting them?
Well, we worked so hard. Coming out of the pandemic, there was a lot of funding, and now we're losing all this funding, which has now translated into a lot of layoffs and a lot of unemployment. Which is really disappointing. And, I'm not sure how we come back from that. And so right now we're doing everything we can to support all the workers who are losing those paychecks. And we all know that there's a housing crisis. We're all working hard to get more housing built, but if people don't have jobs with an income to pay for that housing, to what end? So it's a scary time.
In terms of a positive note, I think what's really exciting is Lisa's work to grow the Labor Council. It's been amazing to see a packed room and all of the different affiliates that have been recruited. I think it's really important to the broader labor movement to have that unity. Is there anything you would add about all of your efforts to grow the Labor Council?
Yeah, it's been super exciting to be able to swear in new delegates. Almost every month we've been able to swear in new delegates. We've been really working to add more women. The hard part is that we add new people, but they're really busy. A lot of people, you don't think, especially a girl coming from Texas, Texas is huge, but even in Massachusetts, like it's hard for people to work a full day and then to have our meetings in New Bedford. It's hard for people to actually get to our meetings in New Bedford. And so even though we get new delegates assigned by our affiliates, it's not always easy for the delegates to get to those monthly meetings in person, but we do get new delegates assigned all the time. So the challenge is getting those delegates to the meeting. So every affiliate traditionally get at least to start 3 delegates assigned per affiliate, but sometimes it's hard to get them all there, to a meeting in person every single month. But really exciting that we've got a lot of new delegates, and now in the new year. We'll be having elections. In September, we'll be re-announcing that we'll be having elections in November. So in October, we'll make the announcement of a new slate. And then in November, we'll have elections. And we actually are going to have, for the first time in a long time, a lot of our executive board members retiring, which means that we're going to have a lot of new executive board members this year, and which means we'll be bringing new folks onto our executive board, which is really exciting, which there'll be a shift in our leadership. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes, which means that there'll be a shift in some committees, the restart of some committees, and some new leadership for the Labor Council, which is always exciting. Scary, but exciting. But it allows us to kind of hit the restart button, which is always kind of helpful.
Lisa, as a vice president of the AFL-CIO in Massachusetts, I wonder what it's been like to bring issues of the Southeast and how hard it's been to get other folks in the labor movement on board with what we're working on down here.
When I started at the state Fed, I felt like I was one of very few women, on the board. And over the years, we've added some women to the board, but I have always felt extremely supported. And, of course, following, under Cindy Roderick's wing, she was such a great mentor. But I feel like this labor council has always been one of the favorites. I mean, for lots of reasons. We are one of the most active labor councils in the state. We do a lot, but we are supported not just by the labor movement in Massachusetts, but by our electeds. We're well respected. And I think for different reasons, because we do the work, we're respectful. And I think it's always been important to me that we continue, that we try to see all sides, that we have an open door, that we're open-minded, and that we try to, just maintain good relationships, with everybody. We're not always going to agree, but we try to see all sides, both with our unions, our elected officials, and our employers. We try to just have a respectful process, and try to have dialogue with everybody involved. So as we're approaching municipal elections, it's complicated at best, but it's an important process for us. It impacts our members. It impacts their contracts. And so we try to do due diligence. We encourage our members to be part of that process. And as a labor council, we're encouraged by both the national and the state Fed to be engaged in that process, and we do it. It does mean more work for us, which is hard because we don't have a lot of, we don't have any staff support to do that work. It just means we're having to do more work, but it's important, and so we do it. And not all labor councils do, because they don't have the manpower to do it. But we make sure we do it because we understand how that impacts our members, our affiliates, and so we push our members to be involved in that process. And so we do COPE meetings, we raise money, we invest in those local elections. And I wish we could do it in every city and town in our district, but it's impossible. So we do prioritize which elections we are going to get involved in. But that is something that I do think that we gain respect for because we do the work.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to see the statewide officers of the AFL-CIO come down to visit us and participate in our activities, and to be on the board of the Labor Education Center. So I feel like we're very well supported. We're in a part of the state that isn't always as recognized, but I do feel like we have great support and that we plug in. For example, the Labor Day parade coming up, the first one in years and years. So I think it's great, the level of encouragement for us to attend, and it's just going to build the Labor Council to be a part of the broader labor movement in that way.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think the whole workup that we have for 30 days around, Labor Day, it's exciting, right? The idea that we have a Labor Day barbecue for our members, and we've been doing that for as long as I've been here. It's a tradition that we've kept going. It's great, right? Going to New York this year, doing the trolley ride in Fall River, I think that we do good stuff, right? And, could we do more? Could we do bigger? Could we do better? Sure. But what we do well. And that's what's important. And I think that's what we have to continue to focus on is what can we do well, and continue to do that stuff. So I'm very proud of the scholarship program that we do every year for our members and our affiliates. The Arnold Dubin dinner that we do every year is absolutely amazing. I'm super proud of the work that we do to work collaboratively to make sure that goes off every year. And I think that, that relationship that we have between the Labor Council and the Labor Ed Center is super important, and super proud that we've been able to keep that going. So I just think that, we focus on what we can do and what we can do well, and that is a good recipe for success.
Anything else? What haven't we asked that you wish we had?
I'm just super proud of the work that we've done here in Southeastern Massachusetts. I want people to know that, we are here to work with our community. We're here to work with our electeds. We're here to make things better. We know that this is a union town. This is a union part of our, of our area, and we want to work to make things better for everybody. And, we want to continue to grow. And, we're here to be part of the team. And so we just encourage people, to work with us because we want to work with you. And just give us a seat at the table, and, we will work with you.
And just to throw in here as we wrap up, on behalf of the Labor Education Center, we would not be able to do what we do without the partnership of the Labor Council. All of our 50th anniversary events would not be as well attended as we expect due to all the support, including joint outreach. So it's just been great to always be a partner with the Labor Council. And thanks very much to Lisa for continuing that and for building that relationship more, and for being the MC of the Arnold Dubin dinner every year. So thank you so much. It's been great to interview you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For more information about the work of the Greater Southeastern Massachusetts Labor Council, AFL-CIO, check out their website. And here at the Labor Education Center, it's our 50th anniversary. To learn more about the work we do and to get involved, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. All the information you need is linked in our show notes. Thanks for tuning in.